In today's video, we look how robbers brought down a criminal dealing and supply gang. The gang robbed of £106,000 would not have a clue who robbed them, but infighting by the gang and a small mistake the robbers made would bring down everyone. We do a deep dive into the case, the police investigation and trial. We go to Swansea, May 2020, and nothing out of the ordinary seemed poised to happen. But in the back alleys and low-lying estates, another story was brewing, one that would crack the facade of normalcy wide open. Two worlds were about to collide, the world of ruthless dealing empires, and men desperate enough to steal from them. At the centre was Jonathan Norris, a man with a name known more in courtrooms and custody logs than on any payroll, and his mark, Nicholas Bailey, a well-connected lieutenant in a London to Swansea Class A pipeline. Bailey wasn't just any dealer, he was logistics and strategy, a reputation wrapped in designer threads. Their collision would expose a network, end careers in crime, and set a precedent for how to take out a criminal gang. And now a simple FU act with a set of keys brought both groups down. Jonathan Norris was 38 years old, but wore the face of someone older. Hard timer's way of aging you, more so when your rap sheet runs longer than most men's CVs. He spent most of his adult life in and out of custody, accumulating 91 convictions, like a collector's set of bad decisions. His rap sheet had assaults, burglaries, possession, and intent to supply. He wasn't born a villain, though his first job had been honest, but one bad turn led to another, and when money didn't come fast enough, the streets filled in the blanks. Class A product was the currency, a language of violence, and Swansea the playing field. By spring of 2021, Norris was out on licence after burgling a post office and attacking a PCSO with a crowbar. A nice chap. He was supposed to be lying low. Instead, he was meeting with two men in a rundown council flat in Town Hill, planning the boldest daylight robbery Swansea had seen in years. The plan wasn't born out of greed, it was born out of desperation. He owed people, the kind of people who didn't knock twice. Norris had watched a man get his hand crushed with a vice grip for less. That debt, coupled with the bitter pride of knowing Nicholas Bailey and Ainsley Wood had once cut him out of a deal, made the job feel personal. He had a crew of low-level lads with more brawn than brains, and that suited him fine. He didn't need thinkers, he needed hitters. Nicholas Bailey didn't see himself as a criminal, he saw himself as an entrepreneur. He started low-level dealing in East London, climbing the ranks fast. By his mid-30s, he was running one of the most efficient dealing and supply operations in South Wales. His partner Ainsley Wood handled distribution. Together they moved products mainly Class A from London and Essex down the M4 corridor into the hands of Swansea's restless clientele. They used encrypted devices, burner phones and trusted runners for a well-planned, bulletproof operation. And it worked. They used EncroChat, and on it they spoke freely about drops, amounts of money owed and strategies. Bailey's user handle was Demon Fox. He liked that it made him sound calculated and dangerous. What he didn't know was that EncroChat had been cracked. They had rules: never use names, never say kilos, use code words like shirts, paper or bottles. But even codes can't mask intent. Messages like 3 shirts, 106 paper, heading to the S this morning, might fool amateurs, but not police detectives, with a server full of contexts and aliases for products and amounts. Bailey lived in a world where one wrong move could cost millions, freedom, and even your life. That's why the Swansea run was critical. It was routine, low risk, until one day, it wasn't. An order for 3 kilograms of Class A had been confirmed the previous evening over EncroChat from the head of the Swansea side of the operation, Dale Martin, with a simple message reading 3 to Swansea. The Swansea dealer also made the scale of the operation in the city clear to those in London he was buying from, boasting that I can do 5 a week. Aside from the 3 kilos of Class A in the van for Swansea, there was just over 2 kilos that were destined for dealers in Pontypridd area, and a further kilo which was earmarked for Leeds. It was a big operation. In May 2020, a white Volkswagen van was making its way to the drops, driven by dealer courier Alex Shields. Alex Shields was a man who once ran a clothes company, originally from Newport. He worked in Essex, where he worked in a fishing tackle and bait supply business. His main income, though, was as courier for the organised criminal group. The Volkswagen Caddy owned by Alex Shields made its way down the M4, and by 8 AM it was taking a detour south near Bristol to pick up Nicholas Bailey, one of the two men running the London end of the operation. At 9:45, the Caddy was in Taswell, north of Cardiff, and shortly afterwards dropped off a consignment at Class A, an industrial unit near Pontypridd, where £81,000 was collected. The next stop on the delivery route was Swansea. This was not the first time Shields made the run to Wales. In the previous fortnight alone, he made no fewer than 5 trips from the Essex and London area to South Wales, carrying an estimated 25 kilograms of Class A. It was a risky job to have during lockdown, when there were fewer vehicles on the road and police were making checks on movements. And it showed a level of trust that those higher up in the supply chain have in him. By 10:45 AM, the Caddy was heading to Swansea on the Fabian Way. Shields and Bailey then delivered 3 kilograms of Class A and collected their £106,000 payment, and then began their long journey to their next drop-off in Leeds. So far so good, but their onward trip would be a short one, a journey which would end up suddenly just over a mile away. Carrying £106,000 in cash in a rucksack on Bailey's lap, and 1.25 kilos of Class A, with £81,000 cash locked in a secret compartment in a modified generator in the back of the van. Nothing suggested anything would go wrong, a drop that had been completed many times before. At 11:15 AM, the pair drove to Town Hill Road and Gores Avenue, and then onto Carmarthen Road, where they stopped at traffic lights. Also heading into the city centre along Carmarthen Road at the same time was an ambulance, and as the crew exited the roundabout and went under the railway bridge, they saw a black Ford Mondeo perform a U-turn in the road ahead of them and speed off towards town. Unbeknown to the paramedics at the time, they'd just seen a group of robbers preparing to strike. For the robbers in the Mondeo to keep close to the Volkswagen Caddy meant only one thing. The Volkswagen Caddy had been bugged with a tracker, letting the men in the Mondeo know its every move. Moments later, the Ford pulled up in front of a stationary Caddy at the traffic light, blocking its escape. Out of nowhere, 2 masked men attacked. They swung crowbars, shattering the windows. They reached in, ripped the keys from the ignition, and yanked out a rucksack from behind the seat. It all took less than 20 seconds. The van was immobilised, and with the attackers taking the Volkswagen Caddy keys with them, they disappeared in a black Ford Mondeo that Jonathan Norris was driving. The robbery had gone off flawlessly, or so the gang thought. Immobilising the Volkswagen Caddy van, though may have thought to be a clever move to stop pursuit, but in hindsight, it was a really dumb move. It would shine a big massive spotlight on not only the couriers, but also the robbers. What the robbers didn't know was that the Volkswagen Caddy wasn't just carrying surface cargo. It was a test run for a larger shipment, scheduled 2 days later, and now immobilised right in front of live cameras. Nicholas Bailey fled. Alex Shields stayed with the immobilised van, as he had to. It was registered to him. The events of 11:22 AM that morning were quickly reported to police by shot motorists by the lights, and officers were soon on the scene. They found the immobilised Volkswagen van and Shields, the driver, waiting for them. The best option by Shields was to play the victim of the robbery. Bailey, his passenger, the man who had been holding the bag and had run away, had left him to it. After statements from witnesses and Shields were taken, the van, a crime scene as far as the police were concerned, was taken to a secure garage on Swansea Enterprise Zone. Bailey was now on foot and on the run. He contacted Ainsley Wood, who worked alongside him. He was the London end of the supply operation. The on-the-run Bailey said to Ainsley Wood in London he'd been set up. Within hours, EncroChat messages lit up. Bailey raging, Ainsley Wood tried to calm him down. Others speculated who had the balls to do it. They suspected rivals. Others said no way, this was an inside job. In those crucial few minutes after the robbery, Martin also contacted 2 business partners in Swansea, the men involved with him buying Class A from London and distributing it to street dealers in the city, Daniel Harris and Leon Lay. Harris described as a local Flash Harry character and the toast of SA1 who enjoyed an image of wealth. He had a taste of expensive vehicles and fake bling. He certainly had access to cash, and when police raided his home, they recovered a total of £42,000. Leon Lay, meanwhile, was a former council gravedigger, turned successful car garage owner and dog breeder. The police had impounded the Volkswagen Caddy van. In an attempt to show they were not part of it, Martin told Wood that he and Harris would attempt to recover the Caddy and its secret stash and money. On the Saturday morning, the men, together with another male who has never been identified, travelled to Swansea Enterprise Park compound in Harris's van to try and get access. It quickly became apparent they would not be able to get to the Volkswagen Caddy, so the trio left the garage and their failure was reported back to London. But their attempts to access the van had aroused the suspicion of police, effectively painting a big red target on the group, with police now wondering what was in the van. A crime scene investigators examined the vehicle, going through every part of the van, reminiscent of those from the French Connection. The next to be searched was its cargo, a portable electricity generator. Carefully, inside the generator, investigators found a hidden compartment, accessible with only an electronic key. Police, of course, didn't have a fob. To open it, they forced it open with a hammer and a screwdriver. In the compartment was more than 1.25 kilos of Class A and £81,000 in cash. Operation Tilbury, that very moment, was created. Police would later find out that the Class A was destined for Leeds, while the cash had been collected by the gang from Pontypridd. Simultaneously, investigators were going through the contents of EncroChat servers, recently decrypted after a massive international cyber operation that the French cracked trying to bust a cartel. Bailey's messages were plain as day. He sent warnings, coordinated deliveries, and even typed losing a large packet to some local rats. They had code names, but no real names, but descriptions of incidents and locations. Police followed the digital breadcrumbs, usernames, location pings, the phrases, emojis. They built timelines over 800 messages across a 2-month period. Bailey and Wood had no idea their encrypted empire and conversations were leaking at every keystroke. In the hours after the robbery, there was talk of using a lie detector machine and interrogating suspects, and of employing members of a violent Albanian gang, referred to as Albos, in the message to recover the cash, using violence and intimidation if necessary. As pressure was applied to find the culprits, Martin effectively turned on the third member of the Swansea dealing trio, Leon Lay, and blamed him for the robbery. There were discussions over EncroChat about Albos shooting Lay in the foot and torturing him until they got the money. There were suggestions that also pressure should be put on Lay's wife to make him talk. Martin gave the London dealer Leon Lay's address. This was heat of the moment talk. Calm thinking started to apply. Employing Albanians would be a dumb move. One, letting other criminals know what's happened to you shows weakness that can easily be exploited by the Albanian heavies. It will do more harm than good. It was best to keep it to the inner circle. The police officer's interest then turned to the individuals in the van who had been snooping around the recovery garage that morning. Thanks to CCTV footage, automatic number plate recognition cameras, and the van's distinctive paint job and personalised registration, it was quickly identified as belonging to Daniel Harris. Meanwhile, Jonathan Norris was laying low. The Black Mondeo used in the attack proved a vital clue for police. Police had linked the vehicle to him, and at the time of the robbery, he was out of prison on licence after being jailed for the burglary at the post office and the incident with the PCSO with the crowbar. With more than 90 offences on his record, police were also able to place Norris at the vicinity of the robbery with an unusual piece of evidence. Norris was on electronic tag as part of his release from prison, and his ankle pinged off a base station monitoring unit belonging to another tag wearer who lived on Baptist Well Street, just yards from the robbery at the traffic lights. Jonathan Norris was tracked down and arrested and later admitted being the getaway driver. When they brought Jonathan Norris in, he didn't say much. He just stared at the table, then at the wall. When asked if he knew Bailey, he smirked and said yeah, he ain't a friend though. Jonathan Norris never said a word after. Only there was just the driver. The two masked men who smashed the Volkswagen Caddy's windows and snatched the bag have never been identified. Exactly how the robbers came by this information on the movements of the Caddy that day remains unclear, but it's thought it was bugged and removed when the robbers hit. Police inquiries boosted by a wealth of information became available when the EncroChat phone network was compromised and accessed. It led police beyond Swansea, and further raids and arrests were carried out at locations in Bristol, Kent and London. The investigation also found that following the robbery, Ainsley Wood, anxious to continue the supply business, turned his attention to organise the transportation of more than 20 kilograms of product into South Wales. This side of the operation was taken down when police stopped his Bristol-based courier on the A470 near Cardiff with 5 kilograms of Class A in the boot of her car. Police had a conservative view. The total amount trafficked into South Wales by the gang during the course of the conspiracy was 50 kilograms, with a wholesale value of around £1.9 million and a street value considerably more than that. With the gang and buyers arrested, a further 3 kilograms of Class A was recovered. Prosecutors built a case fast with EncroChat data. They didn't need confessions. They had the logistics, dates, times, orders and grievances. They even had Bailey discussing hiring Albanians to track down the robbers. At Swansea Crown Court, October 2021, the press lined on the benches. Jonathan Norris looked like a man prepared for the outcome. The prosecution laid out the evidence in brutal detail. They showed screenshots of messages, GPS logs, photos from the stash house, surveillance stills. Every word of the OCG gang had been typed on EncroChat was a nail now in their coffin. Judge Paul Thomas QC didn't mince his words. This was not an opportunity. It was a sophisticated robbery targeting a high-level criminal operation, and in doing so, you managed to collapse a network that had terrorised communities through dealing. All men involved pleaded guilty. Jonathan Norris received 9 years for the robbery. Alex Shields was sentenced to 8.5 years. Nicholas Bailey got 13.5 years for conspiracy to supply Class A. Ainsley Wood received 15 years and 9 months for conspiracy to supply Class A, plus a further 8 years to run concurrently. Dale Martin was sentenced to 12 years. Leon Lay was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months. And Daniel Harris received a 16-year sentence. The £106,000, the money, police never recovered it. Not yet. This would all change in late 2024, so let me tell you about it. Robert Norris, the brother of Jonathan Norris, came to the attention of police after the Volkswagen van robbery. Following the robbery, police began examining the finances of Robert Norris and discovered a spate of cash deposits into his bank accounts immediately after the van smash and grab. Robert Norris was not involved in the robbery part, but that the money taken during the smash and grab raid was linked to him through his brother. Robert Norris said the money came from dog breeding, running pubs and buying and selling cars. Following the robbery, a series of cash deposits were made into the bank account of Robert Norris. These took place between June and August 2020 and totalled £66,740. An investigation into the financial position of Robert Norris identified a large credit amount in his account of over £70,000. He was arrested concerning his possible involvement in the robbery and the unexplained cash in his bank account. Norris's bank account for the period of March 2015 and March 2021 revealed £250,000 of unexplained cash deposits. Many of those cash payments were made on the same day at various locations through Swansea. Between 2015 and 2020, Robert Norris did not notify the Inland Revenue of any employment or either in self-assessment tax. In the year between December 2019 and December 2020, Norris passed large amounts of money through the bank account of his own then partner, Natalie McBride, which amounted to just under £24,000. During the same period, Natalie McBride transferred £19,000 back to Robert Norris's account. The total amount of cash subject to the investigation was £312,000. Such was the strength of the evidence against Norris and McBride that they had little option other than to plead guilty. Robert Norris shouted abuse at the judge as he was sent to prison. He was returned to the dock and apologised and wished the judge a happy Christmas. The judge accepted the apology and said he would take no further action, and said he had some good news for the defendant. The judge's good news for Robert Norris, he said there was a miscalculation of the discount which was applicable to the sentence. He would now serve a sentence of 4 years and 5 months, and not 4 years and 9 months. Going back down to the cells, Robert Norris said, "Merry Christmas." Natalie McBride received a 12-month community order. Jonathan Norris became an unlikely anti-hero in the underworld. Not revered, not respected, Nicholas Bailey, his empire crumbled. Word was from his London contacts cut him off. Ainsley Wood's name was scrubbed from dealer circles entirely. The EncroChat fallout continued across the UK. Thousands of arrests followed, dozens of gangs unravelled, cryptic usernames, once offered security, now were evidence. But out of all of it, there was just one mistake Jonathan Norris's crew made. They should not have taken the keys from the van during the robbery. Doing that got everyone pinched. What seemed a good idea brought down everyone. Proceeds of crime are now recovering the money from Robert Norris. With confiscation orders now being worked upon, the only ones who made from this caper seems to be the government.